Christine and Leah Papin were the daughters of Gustav and Clemens Papin. Gustav and Clemens tied the knot in 1901 and in 1902 welcomed into the world their first daughter, Amelia, although the world did not quite welcome baby Amelia, as we will find out a little later. There were rumours that baby Amelia may not have been Gustav's daughter. Gustav believed Clemens was having an affair and Amelia was another man's child. Gustav decided to treat baby Amelia as his own and moved the family away in order to put an end to the affair. But make no mistake, Gustav was not a good man and he was not a good father, which will become apparent very soon. And in turn, Clemens wasn't exactly a very good mother either. In 1905, Christine was born, but the normal happiness and joy that comes with a newborn baby was somewhat lacking from her parents, who were not exactly nurturing to the children. In fact, when it comes to parenting, the maternal and paternal instincts seemed non-existent. In fact, they saw children as an inconvenience. And so it was decided that baby Christine would be better off living with Gustav's sister. And when Leah was born in 1911, she was handed over to her uncle on her mother's side, whilst the couple's firstborn Amelia remained with her parents. But when the child turned 10 years old, Gustav, her father, as far as she was concerned, raped her. And shockingly, her own mother, Clemens, accused Amelia, a 10-year-old child, of seducing Gustav and sent her away to live at an orphanage. But eventually, Clemens and Gustav's marriage did come to an end in 1913. Shortly after Amelia entered the orphanage, her sister Christine followed, and in 1918 Amelia decided to enter a convent to become a nun, and there she stayed for the remainder of her days, leaving her past behind as best she could. Christine apparently also showed interest in becoming a nun, but her mother refused. You see, the mother decided that the two remaining sisters, Christine and Leah, should actually find work, probably to line her own pocket. In fact, this was her intention all along, to keep her children in the orphanage until they were old enough to work, so that she could actually claim all the money that they went out earning. And I'm sure you will agree that the mother sounds like a real class act. Now, Christine actually had a few jobs here and there as a living maid. She was actually very good at her job. She was a good cook and a hard worker. The bond between Christine and Leah was immensely strong, and they literally needed each other to be happy. So much so that they didn't feel the need to actually socialise with anybody else. They stayed away from all kinds of social events, and they didn't need anything apart from each other. In a cruel world that was not exactly kind to them, they found a comfort in each other that no other person could match. And I think it's safe to say that it went beyond a sisterly love. In fact, there may have been an incestuous relationship between the two sisters, and later details as we go on will strengthen this theory. Due to this extreme bond that the sisters had with each other, it was essential that they worked together. They could not bear to be separated. It was almost like they needed each other just to stay alive. An exaggeration on my part, but possibly an accurate assumption of their feelings for each other. In February 1927, Christine was employed by the Lancelins as a living maid. Not a particular well-paid job, but a living maid would get her accommodation and food for free. So to actually get a wage, even if it was not much, and also not have to worry about rent and food, made it a good job to have in those days. Christine's employer was Monsieur René Lancelin, who was a retired solicitor, and his wife was named Madame Leonie Lancelin, and their daughter Genevieve Lancelin. They did also have an older daughter who was married but no longer lived in the family home. Christine Papin was a very good maid and she worked extremely hard. Maybe this is the reason Leah was also hired to work alongside her sister in the Lancelin house after Christine convinced René Lancelin to employ her. And at first the sisters had a very good relationship with their employers, especially Madame Lancelin. You see, she had actually took care of the sisters when she found out that they were sending their wage to their mother. She put a stop to this immediately. She stopped the sisters sending their money, and then she told the sisters to actually call her mother. So it seems like she'd actually tried to take care of the sisters. She may have actually had their best interests at heart. And working together was like a dream come true. It's all that they desired. When together, they did not really need anyone else in their life. They were more than happy to just be in each other's company. And for a while, life was good. The sisters worked hard and did an immaculate job. But, like I said, it was clear that the sisters were close. They were very close. And they preferred their own company. This does not mean that the sisters were impolite. In fact, in a statement made after the murders, Monsieur Lancelin stated that the girls were indeed polite, but conversation was basically only about their duties around the house. And over time, conversation between Madame Lancelin and the sisters became more or less non-existent. This may have been due to the sisters' personalities and the fact that they were so bound to each other and hardly let the outside world in. Or maybe it was the divide in classes between employer and employee. Maybe the sisters were simply not worthy of conversation from the Lancelins unless it was to give them instruction or to dish out complaints of the work not done to a certain standard. Now, if there was some kind of class divide between the family and the sisters, it would only get worse when Madame Lancelin was diagnosed with depression and became more and more hostile against the sisters. Allegedly, this included assaulting the sisters, including pinching of the skin as punishment, and she would often go around checking for dust with a white glove on, and if she found it, the Lancelin sisters would suffer. On Thursday the 2nd of February 1933, Madame Lancelin and her daughter Genevieve returned home to find the house in darkness. This was due to a faulty iron that Christine had collected from the repair shop and paid for with her own money, blowing the fuses in the house. Now, according to Christine, when Madame Lancelin came in, she was enraged that the house had no power, that the house was in darkness, and she wouldn't listen to the explanation of what had actually happened, and she actually went to attack Christine. Now, when she did this, all hell broke loose. What you're about to hear is not going to be pleasant. Now, according to Christine, Madame Lancelin became angry and went to attack her, but before she could, Christine threw herself at Genevieve and with her bare fingers tore out both of her eyes. And at the very same time, Leah leapt at Madame Lancelin and did the very same thing. She dug her fingers into the sockets and dug in deep, scooping Madame Lancelin's eyes from her skull. After the eye gouging was done, Madame Lancelin and Genevieve could not do much other than squat and lay on the floor, blind, howling in pain. Christine then ran to the kitchen and grabbed a hammer and a kitchen knife, and then stood over Madame Lancelin and Genevieve, who were still clutching at their empty eye sockets and laying on the floor, and commenced to hit them over the head with the hammer and stab them repeatedly with the knife. It was truly a frenzied attack, each taking turns hitting them over the head with the hammer and slashing the mother and daughter with the knife, all the while exchanging weapons several times over, as well as grabbing a pewter jug to bludgeon the two women. Eventually, Madame Lancelin and her daughter stopped howling, and the sisters looked upon their two massacred bodies. At 6:30 p.m, Monsieur Lancelin returned home himself. His wife and daughter were due to have dinner at his brother-in-law's house, but they didn't appear. But when he arrived home, he found he could not get into the house as it had been bolted from the inside. After a lot of knocking, he decided something was amiss, and he went to the police station. He returned with 3 policemen, 2 of which entered the house through a window at the back of the house. As a police officer walked to the first floor landing, he found Madame Lancelin and Genevieve on the floor in a bloody mess. They were simply unrecognisable. Their faces had been caved in, and Madame Lancelin's eyes lay within the folds of her own scarf that was still wrapped around her neck, and a kitchen knife lay underneath her body. One of Genevieve's eyes was found under her body, whilst the other had found its way upon the stairs across the hall, along with a battered pewter jug. Of course, upon finding the mother and daughter in a dark, quiet house murdered in such a way, it did not leave much hope for the 2 living maids, who the police feared had met the same fate somewhere else in the house. The police searched the house until they came to the locked door of the sisters' bedroom. After knocking and receiving no response, a locksmith was brought in, and as far as everyone was concerned, they were going to find something quite horrendous on the other side of this door. As the locksmith managed to unlock the door, it swung open, everyone braced themselves for what awaited them inside. What they did find was the Papin sisters naked in bed together, whilst over on a nearby chair lay a hammer covered in blood with her clinging to the head. The sisters confessed straight away to the killing, but claimed it was in self-defense. The sisters were kept separate whilst awaiting trial, and this was proving to take its toll on them. They both refused to eat or drink for a week, and as time passed it became clear that the sisters became more unstable every day that they were apart, especially Christine, whose grief seemed immense. So much so that Christine actually tried to claw out her own eyes and was placed into a straitjacket for her own protection. Due to the fact that the sisters were not coping with the separation, it was arranged for them to meet. Upon seeing each other, Christine threw herself at Leah and immediately started to unbutton her blouse, begging her to please say yes. This suggested that there was indeed an incestuous relationship between the two sisters. Whilst the trial went on, an angry crowd gathered outside the court demanding the death penalty. Whilst inside, the sisters looked like a shell of their former self, dishevelled and worn out. The weight of the murders had become tremendous upon them, and both of the sisters took an equal amount of the blame and confessed fully to the murders. Although it was believed that Christine was the instigator, the leader, and Leah was the weaker-willed sister who simply followed suit. In September 1933, the sisters awaited their fate. The verdict of the case only took 4 minutes to be delivered, and the verdict was guilty. Christine would be executed, beheaded by the guillotine in the main square of Le Mans, whilst Leah would receive 10 years hard labour. And upon hearing that Christine faced the guillotine, Leah appealed against Christine's sentence, but Christine refused and accepted her fate. Although a year later the sisters' sanity was brought into question, and Christine's death sentence was changed to hard labour for life. Over time, Christine's mental stability worsened, and eventually she was placed in an asylum where she died of lung infection due to self-inflicted malnutrition on the 18th of May 1937. Leah was released from prison in 1943, and she lived 50 miles away from Le Mans in a town called Nantes with her mother. Upon leaving prison, she had her name changed to Marie and worked as a chambermaid and a cleaner. Leah, or Marie, was believed to have died in 1982. However, a French film producer who was working on a film about the Papin sisters claimed to have found Leah living in a hospice centre in the year 2000, but the woman was unable to speak after suffering from a stroke, and she passed away the following year in 2001. It was said by her neighbours that she was a delightful old lady who trotted around cheerfully and loved looking after children. Whether this old lady was actually Leah or not remains a mystery.